to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and one that I haven't gone into yet, and it's gut health, right? I've talked about it a bit more. I'm by no means an expert here, and there's obviously people that know way more than me about gut health, but I wanted this to be more of a overview for you. Again, this isn't a deep dive, but to give you a general overview of what to look for and at least get you to explore, hey, actually my gut, maybe it's not as bad as I thought, or maybe it's worse than I thought and it's impacting more things. And so really I want this to be a mostly awareness thing, but also there's some practical tools that you can use here to improve gut health, right? Because as we'll talk about here, there's some things that happen with gut health that end up leading people taking extreme measures, from taking out foods or getting on like a super, like getting a bunch of test blood work done, markers done, and having to spend a lot of money here when there's a lot of things that people tend to overlook. So we're going to dive into those there. And so before I get into that, though, I just want to go over my free body recomp checklist. In this checklist, I go over 10 things you need for body recomp. What is body recomp? Why we want to focus on that over just scale weight loss, the different types of body recomp. And so really it's a deep dive into that. So if you're interested in learning more about this, that free checklist is for you. So go and check that out. The link to that is in the show notes. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic around why gut health matters, especially if you're focused on performance and body composition, right? And even just health. And I think if you're 30 plus, this is going to definitely be an episode that you'll want to, it's a boring topic for sure. I'm not going to act like this is a super sexy topic. It's definitely boring, but it really can be impacting a lot of things. I think it's, like I said, the main goal of this episode is really to get you to have some awareness, to pay attention to it more, some low-hanging fruit things that we can do to help improve it before you have to go and get on a super restrictive diet, a super restrictive elimination diet, get a bunch of tests done, right? Because I feel like a lot of times now you could go and say you have some sort of gut issues and you're going to end up having to take a bunch of blood tests, and then you end up with a supplement protocol that's hundreds and hundreds of dollars per month. When again, maybe some people do need some of these measures, but there's a lot of things that we can do before we have to get to that point. And the gut really is going to impact a lot of things, as you'll see, right? So if our gut health is off, it's really going to have a lot of downstream impacts in terms of body composition, stress resilience, recovery, energy, appetite, which is going to have a lot of different effects. And also to keep this in mind, there's still a lot of research to be done, and this is still early in terms of how much we know about the gut. There's still a lot that needs to get figured out. Again, I'm not going to dive into every last little bit, but think of this as just a general overview and things to look out for here. So again, your gut's going to influence digestion, energy, recovery, appetite, body comps, and like we talked about, stress resilience. So, when digestion and your gut health is off, you'll often see issues like some bloating, irregular stools, fatigue, cravings, and poor performance in the gym. Before I came more aware of these things and learned more about the gut, it was just, oh yeah, I go to the bathroom, and you don't think too much more. You don't really think about the quality of it. It's, oh, hey, if the quality's off, or maybe you don't even notice it, you don't really care. You don't really think twice of it. Or if you think that you have certain issues with your gut, you just think, oh, it's just the way it is, right? This is just how I am. I don't have a good gut. Or when you eat that type of food, that's just what happens. And so we can brush it off from that standpoint. I know for me, I used to suffer from multiple different things. I think a lot of it had to do with my gut, right? So one was excessive like bloating and like stomach pain for certain meals, especially when I would eat a lot, maybe things that like weren't necessarily the greatest for me, a lot of acne and skin issues, which we'll talk about can definitely be impacted by your gut. Probably wasn't digesting food as well as I could have, and I was eating a lot of food, right? So I put a lot of stress on my gut. Alcohol, we're talking probably college to early teens, that age range. So I've definitely dealt with gut issues in the past. Also, I would have bouts of where I would go to the bathroom very regularly for a couple of days. This would happen every so often, right? It would be, and I don't think it was sickness related, but I would have these episodes where it would be 1 to 2 days of going every couple hours. Again, this hasn't happened for a while. And it was, I don't know the exact frequency on it, but it was definitely would happen maybe a couple times a year for sure. Just understand some of this comes from my own experience with this as well. The gut's also been referred to as the second brain. And when our gut's off, it can impact mental health as well. Poor gut health is associated with lower mood and even higher rates of depression as well too, right? So you can see this start to impact people's mood and how they feel from day to day. And one of the reasons it's referred to as a second brain is it produces a large amount of neurotransmitters, including 90% of the body's serotonin, which is important for mood, motivation, and appetite regulation. So there's a huge neurotransmitter and serotonin, specifically serotonin component in the gut, which a lot of people don't realize that. So again, it's been referred to as a second brain, not in the sense that it's going to make decisions for you and everything like that, but really can impact the rest of your body. And there's always that kind of, oh, hey, I had that gut feeling saying as well too. So let's talk about some common gut issues. And hopefully, again, the goal here is to just get you to be aware of what's going on. So we have, again, understand I'm really tying this back to body composition and performance and health at the end of the day. Because again, I feel like hopefully by the end of this, you're going to understand how it can impact your body composition. Again, if it's, I don't get, hey, I want to build more muscle, I want to lose some body fat. I don't understand how this is going to help me do that. And definitely continue it to listen on here. There. So some common gut issues that we'll see are going to be constipation. So constipation being you're not going as frequently, you're going less frequently, or even when you go, you feel like you want to continue to, you didn't feel like you fully emptied everything out. Bloating. But again, bloating, we're not talking about water retention. Those could go hand in hand, but bloating, we're talking about stomach distension. You just are really feeling like your stomach is sticking out there. So bloating, excessive fullness after meal. So beyond what you would expect for the amount you ate. Some people think could put that as a positive of, oh, hey, I'm fuller, so I'm not going to eat as much. But again, if you're getting excessively full on an amount that you wouldn't think that you would, again, definitely a sign that there's some sort of gut issue going on right now. This doesn't mean that you need to work. If you have any of these things once or a couple times, this isn't alarming by any means, right? We'll talk about what good gut health looks like, some moderate gut issues, and then more extreme gut issues that would lead to you probably needing to refer out to a specialist here for that. Excess gas as well too, right? Probably I would say excess gas, but then also very like poor smelling gas as well too. Irregular or poor bowel movements. So irregular being probably going hand in hand with constipation, but poor bowel movements being looking at the Bristol stool chart. We'll go over what that looks like. Obviously, here on the podcast, I can't really show you. I could describe it as best as I can, but I definitely would refer you to looking at the Bristol stool chart, and I'll give you some numbers to look for there. Some skin issues, right? So we're talking acne, rashes, right? That's a sign that there is some sort of gut issue going on. And again, with any of these, things like constipation, bloating, excess gas, like that probably is a bit more like directly related to the gut, but something like skin issues, it could just be poor skin hygiene, but it could be a gut issue as well too, right? So again, these are just things that we need to look into if you're having these symptoms. Fatigue or low energy. So again, that could come from multiple different reasons, but again, there is a huge gut component to that. Digestive discomfort, again, that could be, that's going to be more tightly linked to the gut there. Immune issues or frequent sickness. Again, there's a lot of different things that could impact that, but if you are commonly getting sick, you may want to look into that, especially if you do feel like you focus on your recovery, you do eat mostly good foods, you don't drink a ton of alcohol, right? Like I said, there's a lot of things that could impact that outside of gut. But again, if you feel like you're getting a good base of whole foods in your diet, getting a good supplementing things like multivitamins, getting in plenty of vitamins and minerals, and you're still finding that this to be the case, could be a potential gut thing. Again, though, a lot of people think that's, oh yeah, I go to bed for 8 hours and then their circadian rhythm's all out of whack, and that's issue, and they need to look into that. So what I'm getting at is, even if you do feel like you're perfect, there's still some things that you may be thinking that you're doing perfect, but we might still have a lot of room to improve. But if you do feel like you're doing those things relatively well and you're having these issues, it could be a gut thing. Brain fog or trouble concentrating. Again, there's a lot of things that can impact that, but there could be a gut component to it. And as I said, these symptoms are common and they can also often be related to lifestyle patterns that are fixable. But in saying that, I mentioned, hey, things like immune issues or brain fog or trouble concentrating, like those could be things outside of just the gut that are impacting that. The thing here with this, though, is if you do these practices that can help with your gut, they're usually going to be in line with good overall lifestyle practices. And so they go hand in hand, and you can kill a lot of birds with you can kill multiple birds with one stone. I was going to say you can kill, I don't know what I was going to say there, but there's a lot of carryover. And once I sum all this up, you'll probably be like, okay, these are a lot of things that you do talk about regularly there. And again, I think that is the importance here of listening to this first before feeling like you need to go and get a bunch of work done, tests done, and things like that. So I think this can also, it can also impact digestion of nutrients, right? A couple that we would be looking at would be like iron and B vitamins, right? If your iron is like low, and women are generally going to have lower iron because menstruating women are going to generally have lower iron, as well as I believe people that eat more of a plant-based diet will also be at a higher risk of iron deficiency as well too. But your gut, and again, there's a huge stress component to this, can also, for not absorbing nutrients, that could be something where it's like, hey, you're getting it, like you're supplementing with iron, you're getting plenty, and your iron levels are still low. That could be a gut issue. Same thing with B vitamins as well too. So a lot of our vitamins and minerals, we may be supplementing and we may be taking in plenty of them, But if our digestion's off, there's some sort of issue going on there. We're not absorbing those nutrients. That's going to show up as low energy. It's going to show up as that brain fog, trouble concentrating, fatigue, immune issues, frequent sickness, because we're not absorbing these nutrients that we are giving our body. And that's something that I see happen a lot of times as well too. And this can also show up on blood work as a high HSCRP. Now, here's the thing. If you just have a high HSCRP, which is highly sensitive C-reactive protein, which is just like a general inflammatory marker that you can get in your blood work, and it can, like, if that's high, that's, and you're maybe having some of these issues, there's a sign that there is some sort of gut issue going on, right? There's some inflammation in your body that could be, you don't know where it's at, you just know it's high. But a lot of times it can, I don't want to say a lot of times, but it can potentially be tied back to some gut issues, especially if you're having some of these issues that we discussed here. So what are some things that can influence gut health? So these are going to be things that, okay, so now we know common gut issues. We know how it can potentially show up in your blood work. We know how it can impact digestion of nutrients and how it can also impact mental health. But what's going to influence our gut health are some things here. So one's going to be your fiber intake. If we're very low fiber, that can impact your gut. If you're very high fiber, that can also impact your gut, right? There's that Goldilocks zone for each person. Generally speaking, we're looking at 20 to 40 grams per day of fiber. Now, the key though, the trick here is we'll talk about different fibers to get in the diet as well too. Chewing and eating speed. This is a very common one that people don't overlook. And in today's modern environment, they just really forget about that. And that's a big one that I see. Chewing and eating speed, eating very quickly is not going to be great from a digestion standpoint there. Overall stress load. So there's a huge stress component to your gut. I think this one probably trumps everything. And the thing is, again, that can lead to so many issues down the line. So there's a huge stress load component to the gut, right? And the thing with that is a lot of times I see this with clients where it's like, hey, I've eaten this food before and it didn't give me any issues, or I don't understand why I'm now having these issues. But it's like one of those things where if there's a period of time in your life where stress is high, and then we start to, and again, that high stress load can be from multiple different things. It doesn't have to just be, oh, hey, something bad happened to me. That's obviously a huge piece of it, but high stress level in the body can come from other things as well too. And some of them go into the things I'm about to talk about here. But when stress load's high, that's usually a big irritant to the gut. And then everything that you do from then on, it continues to just add on, right? So it's, hey, something that maybe that doesn't really irritate your gut normally when you're stressed, it may. And then now you have that going against it, and then you add something else to it, and it's like everything just builds off of top of each other with it, right? So there's a huge stress component to it. Sleep quality and circadian rhythm, right? So sleep quality is going to be super important here. The worse our sleep is, it's probably going to impact your digestion and gut health. Food choices, again, obviously the foods we eat are going to impact our gut for sure. Daily activities, so whether you move too much or too little, again, most people are probably not going to move too much, but too little is definitely a concern. Meal timing and consistencies. A very erratic eating schedule can impact it, but then also meal timing as well too, right? So when are we eating our meals? We want to be like just eating a large portion of your calories at night there, right? That's another big one there. Alcohol intake. Alcohol is a huge irritant on the gut there. Hydration, being dehydrated can definitely impact things like constipation, under eating, or chronic dieting, right? Especially paired with like high training. Again, that's a pretty big stress load on the body. So it can get tied back to that. But under eating or chronic dieting can definitely impact gut health, right? So if you're someone who's always tried to restrict, maybe you've had these episodes where you've been super restrictive, and then you have these like really high caloric days where you eat a lot of food, maybe a lot of processed food, add alcohol into it. I think that lack of consistency in terms of what you're doing is going to be huge there, and that can be a stressor on the gut. And then medications, right? PPIs, NSAIDs, antibiotics, metformin can all mess with our gut as well too. And you could potentially put birth control on there as well. One other thing that's going to impact gut health that I didn't put on here is going to be the menstrual cycle. So certain phases of the menstrual cycle will definitely impact somebody's gut as well too. I think it's going to be different from person to person on what it is, but generally speaking, you see a little bit more bloating, water retention, things like that, and that week or two leading up to the actual bleed. And then sometimes during the bleed, you'll see almost like diarrhea during that time, right? So again, the menstrual cycle is going to impact it. What I tell a lot of clients there is, we know that's the case, how we just have to be on top of our decisions a bit more and knowing things that borderline impacts your gut normally, but then when you're like at certain phases in your menstrual cycle, you may need to be on top of that even more. So some common like food intolerances and common foods that can be irritants. So we're looking at gluten, right? Again, very common. This doesn't mean, oh, hey, you need to just completely cut out gluten. We need to look into it, right? If you're someone that you have a lot of these things going on, gluten may be more of an irritant then, or just in general, right? Like you may be really dialing in things and you may have to really watch your gluten intake. Dairy is a common irritant, conventional soy, eggs, nuts, nightshades, so like potatoes, peppers, eggplant, tomatoes, FODMAPs, right? Beans, legumes, and then obviously some things like sugar alcohols slash like low fats, diet type foods, low calorie type foods, gum. These can be things that can irritate the gut. Again, I don't think it's like a for some people, they're going to have a little bit more wiggle room than others. And then some, it's they can really do whatever and it doesn't really matter. And then some people, there's a middle ground of what they can do. So again, this doesn't mean it's 100% going to cause issues, but again, it depends on the person. And here's the thing too, like food intolerances, they aren't always permanent. They can often reflect inflammation, stress, or low digestive capacity at that time. And it also depends on what we're doing, right? Again, I keep coming back to the better our lifestyle habits are, the more you're going to get away with. And again, some people just have to be on top of it more than others. Do you need to feel something to have gut issues? And no, they're not always going to be loud. Many people have silent or low grade issues that really shows up in more subtle ways like fatigue, cravings, mood changes, or irregular stools long before you feel anything. So you don't always necessarily need to feel anything. This is why I always come back to if a client is saying that they're having these high cravings, their mood's changing, they have high fatigue, like we have to look into that and we can't just, we need to see what is going on if there's something that we can dial in. Again, there's a lot of overlapping things that could be going on, right? So for example, let's go to fatigue. It's, yeah, you could be, maybe your sleep patterns haven't been the greatest the last little bit. Now that's going to show up as now your gut's probably a little bit more irritated. And so now certain things are going to cause more issues, right? And then if you keep you keep irritating it more, it's just going to continue to get worse. So again, it may be a thing that doesn't have anything to do with gut health that you need to do to help improve that. But again, if we're having issues, we have to look at the other lifestyle stuff there. Let's go signs of good gut health, right? What does that look like? Regular bowel movements. Again, we're talking mostly Bristol types, 3 to 4. If you're looking at a Bristol stool chart, you're in that 3 to 4 number there. You're looking the how they gave the definitions there. Obviously, go and look this up. I can't show you on a podcast, but type 3 would be like a sausage, but with cracks on its surface. And then type 4 would be like a sausage or snake, smooth and soft. Like those are going to be the best ones, right? That's a good sign that our gut health is good. So if you're going regularly, you have good quality bowel movements and they look like this, things are likely in a good spot for you. Gas, steady energy throughout the day, good recovery from workouts. We have clear skin, strong appetite regulation. You're not overly hungry. Maybe you're a little hungry, but again, we have good appetite regulation. We have stable mood and mental clarity, no pain or discomfort after meals, and we have a good tolerance to a wide variety of foods. I think the big things being you're having regular bowel movements and minimal bloating or gas, and it's like, hey, you're probably in a good spot. Again, always look at, hey, do I have good habits overall? But again, overall, your gut's probably in a good spot. So now let's go to more like moderate gut issues. Again, these are earlier mild indicators that something is off, but not necessarily anything severe. So we're looking at occasional bloating or fullness after meals, like excess fullness, not just fullness. I think if you keep just hammering food in when you get extra full all the time, that can eventually lead to issues. Slight irregularity in bowel movements. Maybe you're fairly consistent. You have some days where maybe you don't go. And again, that itself, I wouldn't say is necessarily an issue. Some people just tend to go less than others. But again, you have a slight irregularity. Increased cravings, afternoon energy dips, sleep disruptions, mild brain fog, occasional skin breakouts, feeling puffy or inflamed some days, sometimes feeling better or worse depending on stress. So these are just warning signs of, okay, there's probably some things I can work on, which we'll talk about here. Now, signs of poor gut health where it's like, hey, we need to really start to look into things here are going to be things like frequent bloating or distension, constipation, or consistent diarrhea. Again, if you're constipated for 2 days, I'm not concerned about that, right? Like, just, hey, maybe we need to tighten some things up. Maybe you're just eating a little bit less. Maybe you're in a fat loss phase. But if that's consistently happening week over week, you're going 2 to 3 times a week. So yeah, we definitely need to see what is going on there. Like we're talking excessive gas. Again, 1 day of this, no big deal, but it starts to be like, hey, multiple days out of the week, multiple weeks on end, we need to look into the reflux or heartburn, brain fog, fatigue that doesn't resolve. You have skin issues like eczema, acne, rashes, things like that, poor appetite or nausea, food intolerances that are increasing over time, post-meal discomfort, immune issues or getting sick more often, trouble recovering from workouts, low motivation and mood swings. Again, these are signs that we have some sort of issue going on with our gut and we need to look into that more. As I was talking about earlier, gut problems will create a chain reaction, right? So if one part of the digestion system is stress, the rest of the system becomes more reactive, right? So again, stress is going to be the big thing there, right? So once we have some stress, it's like the things that maybe they didn't irritate you before, now they may more, right? So again, if you know you're going to be having high stress period, it's probably not a time to pair it with a bunch of alcohol, to pair it with a bunch of diet type foods. Maybe you need to look out for certain things during that time, right? Those are the main things that we're looking for there. But just understand that once there is that stress, that initial stressor, everything else can just start stack on top of each other there. All right, so now that we know, what different signs look like of good gut health versus, hey, moderate to poor gut health, what are some things that we can do, right? One, to just be more proactive on this, but then also if we are experiencing some of these things. So what can improve gut health? So we're looking at chewing and eating pace. Proper chewing and slower eating can reduce bloating and help digestion start smoothly. So we want to make sure that we're chewing and eating food. I just tell people to make sure that if we're constantly eating on the go and we're eating our food very quickly, that can impact our gut. That's one of the first things that we look at there is, hey, what's our eating speed? And we need to make sure we're really chewing our food there. Stress management. So again, watching overall stress load on your body, making sure that we're managing overall stress load because we know that there's a huge stress component to gut health. So sleep quality. So we're looking at making sure we get into a good circadian rhythm habit, get good sleep quality. Because again, this can impact appetite, motility, inflammation, and the microbiome, right? Because there's obviously the direct effects of it, but the indirect of being, okay, now you're more hungry and maybe you want tastier food and now you overconsume that processed type food, you overconsume calories, and now there's a huge stressor on the gut, right? Food quality. So again, just less highly processed foods because we know that can impact the gut, right? So making sure we're improving our food quality. So looking at that, getting more fiber in, right? Daily activity, right? So movement increases gut motility and improves regularity. Post-meal walks are great. That can help with digestion. And saying that too much exercise can impact your gut health as well. So doing too much with too little eating or recovery can start to impact your gut health as well too. So it's finding that Goldilocks zone. But again, just understand most people probably don't need to worry about that unless you're getting 15, 20,000 steps plus per day, exercising 6 days a week and eating low calories. Then you'd want to start to look at, hey, maybe I'm doing a bit too much and now my gut's going to be impacted from that there. But it's also going to be an intensity thing, right? Like how hard do you do it? If you do 15,000 steps low intensity, no big deal, right? But now you start to run 6 days a week, super high heart rate with that. Now you're not eating as much. Like that's going to start to add up for sure. Again, meal timing, right? Being like we said, regular with that, having some consistency from day to day, avoiding that like really low calorie day followed by those days where you just go off the rails and you eat super high calorie on those days, topped off with alcohol as well too, right? And then really watching our food intake too close to bed. That can impact gut health as well too. We want to avoid like overeating and just be careful with very long fasts. I do think that some fasting could be helpful for people. If you're someone that you look at what you do from day to day and let's say you're up for 16 hours and you're eating for 14 of those hours, or let's make sure my numbers are right here. Again, you're eating for 14 to 18 hours out of the day. I think you could benefit from decreasing that from time to time. Just give your gut some sort of break there. I'm on that. But very long fasts, and we do that regularly, that can also impact things. But then again, like I said, overeating can also impact it. And long fat loss dieting can also start to impact it. We'll see things slow down. For example, thyroid will slow down when thyroid's low. That can impact how quickly things go through the gut. And so we need to make sure we're not always fat loss dieting either. But we need to be careful with overeating, as that can impact it as well too, right? Like having really large meals can also not be great from a gut health perspective. And then alcohol moderation, right? Alcohol is going to disrupt digestion, and it's just a huge irritant on the gut. I can't stress enough how big of an irritant it is. And if you're someone that does struggle with these things, with gut health issues, you definitely want to look into your alcohol intake for sure. Again, hydration, like making sure you're hydrated enough. You don't need to overhydrate, but making sure you're hydrated enough is going to be key there. Again, fiber is going to be important. Making sure we get about 20 to 40 grams a day. It's going to improve stool quality, feeds healthy bacteria, and supports blood sugar regulation. Again, there's a lot of benefits from that perspective. So making sure we get enough fiber. But we want to get a nice blend of soluble fiber, which can slow things down. Things like oats, apples, chia seeds, beans can be helpful. But then we also insoluble fiber as well too. Things like leafy greens, whole grains, vegetables, stuff like that. We want to mixture of both. So making sure you get a good blend of those two and not just one there. A couple other notes on this too. So those are the things that we can do to help improve. These are low-hanging fruit things that I think most people are overlooking, at least a couple of those things before they need to go and do advanced testing and things like that. A couple other things to keep in mind too. As we age, gut health will generally decrease. This is definitely something that as we get into our 30s and beyond, we want to pay attention to even more. There's also if you've been putting a lot of, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say here, but if you've been irritating your gut for a lot of years, it's like that is going to add up as well too, right? So if you haven't been focused on these things, we have to think that not only does it get worse as we age, but chronic exposure to irritating it is also going to be impactful there as well. Again, just keep in mind too, like when we fat loss diet, we're likely going to go less. We're eating less food. Like I said, thyroid will slow down, so things will slow down a little bit. So again, this isn't a cause for concern, but it's only an issue if you continue to do that for extended periods of time. And so again, we just want to make sure that we're paying attention to that there. I'm not going to really discuss any sort of supplements just because, again, I think it is very individual on the person. And so, again, I truly think that if people spend most of their time focused on these things, it can really help with a lot of people's issues from a gut perspective. Again, if we're not absorbing nutrients, we're not able to push our training as well, these things are going to impact your body composition. And so, again, it could be, hey, like you're tracking your calories, you're working hard. But again, if we're not doing these things and our gut health is off, we're likely not fighting an uphill battle, but you're making the process of body comp change a little bit harder. And your body's not going to be as in a good of a state to be ready to change and make body composition change there. Again, this is going to be an indirect thing that will impact your body composition as well too, right? And again, if your body's not absorbing nutrients it needs, again, you could expect muscle gain to not be as efficient as well too. Again, as I said earlier, we definitely want to look at the Bristol stool chart. This can be a great way to look at stool quality. So again, I think this is a great thing. Like I said, the two best signs of good gut health are going to be, hey, you're going regularly. Again, whatever that is for you. For some people, it is every other day. For some people, it is every day. For some people, it's a couple times a day. I'm not overly concerned about timing. If it's your timing's off a little bit, to me, that's not a huge concern, but definitely something that, the frequency to which you go, I think, is a little bit more important. But then quality. So when we look at the Bristol stool chart, and there's types 1 through 7. So one's going to be separate hard lumps like nuts, hard to pass. Type 2 is going to be sausage shaped, but very lumpy. And again, type 3 and type 4 is where we want to be. That's your like a sausage, but with cracks on its surface. Like a sausage or snakes, smooth and soft would be type 4. And then we have types 5, 6, and 7. Type 5 is soft blobs with clear cut edges, passed easily. So again, now we're like, I think when we're in the middle, that's better. As we start to get to the edges here, that's where it's going to be more problematic. And then we have type 6, fluffy pieces with ragged ends, mushy stool. And then type 7 is watery, no solid pieces, entirely liquid. Again, we want to probably be in that 3 to 4 most of the time. Again, if you have a type 1 every once in a while, you have a type 2, yep, that's not a concern. It's again, more so the trends and what's happening over time are going to be my biggest concerns there with that. I hope this was helpful. A little bit of a deep dive here, but I definitely wanted to go over this to give people an idea of, like I said, hopefully you have awareness now. Oh man, I actually probably need to look into this a bit more, and I need to focus on some of those things you talked about. Like I said, there's a huge carryover to a lot of the lifestyle stuff there. But again, for a lot of people, it really is improving diet quality, less processed type food, getting enough fiber, really slowing down, chewing your food, really working on circadian rhythm and sleep habits, managing stress, right? Because there's a huge stress component to it, and making sure you're exercising in the right amounts based on what you're doing. And this brings up a good point too. This is where a lot of people, endurance runners, people that have high outputs of exercise, can run into some issues, right? Because you have this very high expenditure. You need to fuel for it. And so what do a lot of people that fuel for these type of events do? They have a lot of like liquid gels and things like that. Again, those are, I would say, more not heavily processed, not bad per se. If you're having a lot of those, again, we know that can start to be an irritant on the gut. And that can cause a lot of issues for people that do a lot of endurance training. But then on the flip side, your body can only absorb so much, can only digest and absorb so much food as well too, right? So there's going to be that point where you can't keep eat like, you just are going to run into some issues where you can't eat all that food to match up to the amounts of activity that you're doing. And again, for some people, they're going to be able to handle more, some people less, some people way less. And again, it's also going to be dependent on these things as well too, right? So if recovery is poor, you're probably going to be able to handle less. Anything's going to be a little bit more of a stressor on the gut. I think again, somebody who's more physique oriented, again, the bigger issues are going to be like chronic dieting, eating the same types of food all the time, eating quote unquote diet foods, high volume foods for extended period of time under low calories. And then again, you take it from like a standpoint of people feeling like they need to eat force food before they go to the gym. And so they eat these large meals. Again, maybe that's not the greatest, or they feel like they need to eat right after, when I think digestion is, you probably don't want to have a high veggie, high food volume type meal right around your workouts. Again, maybe you're someone who has a decent amount of muscle and it's like you need to fuel a lot to keep that, or you're in a phase where you're eating more calories, you're going to run into those issues that I talked about with the endurance runners, right? So again, but just remember though, at the base of it is lifestyle stuff. So there's a huge stress component to it, managing that. This is something that I always neglected in my building phases too, and probably contributed to some of my gut issues is, I want to gain weight. So I would just hammer food in, right? And you just get to that point to where your body, it's okay, in order to get in the amount of food that I need to get to keep gaining weight, I have to force myself to eat. And I think that's a sign. I think that's your body telling you like, okay, hey, we got to chill here. You're going to be giving us all this food, probably not going to be using any of it. And if anything, you're just putting more wear and tear on your gut. And so I think at that point, now we're not absorbing our food as well, when I think we're not partitioning our nutrients as well. And that's going to lead to a little bit more fat gain than muscle. So again, I think we just need to pay attention to that if that's you and you're in that phase where you're trying to eat a bit more. And also where this will show up too is for people who are trying to reverse diet. Again, maybe you're someone who's been low calorie for a while. And it's like, hey, I know I need to eat more calories. What I see a lot of times with these people is they tend to try and just increase via the diet foods, like high food volume foods. And it's hard for you to get in the amount of calories that you need to get in because your gut's low. We're not in a good spot here. We can't take in this huge fiber load, this huge high food volume load. And so for you, it's finding some foods that are easier on your gut to also include in and to make small increases versus just going straight to, say, your recovery diet. So you want to look at that as well too there. That's another common thing that I'll see, like in terms of actual people that I work with and what I see and people that are focused on body comp. Those are some things there. So I feel like I hit on people that have high performance goals where this will start to show up on people that have, more like muscle gain, body comp goals, and then people that are trying to get their calories higher that have maybe always had that have always tried the fat loss diet, but they know they need to increase their calories there, right? Because again, if you've been low calorie, there could be some gut issues going on. Thyroid could be a little bit lower. And so I think for you, you need to slowly ramp up and find foods that fit well with you versus, hey, someone said I need to eat more calories. So now I'm just going to throw in a bunch of calories of the same types of food. And I think that can lead to some gut issues there. So I hope this episode was helpful. If you found it to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find it. If you haven't yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff, HOEHN_. That's where I'm most active. That's it for now, and I'll talk to you guys soon.